Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the final segment of the day here on the GSMC Fantasy Sports Podcast. But before we get into the final segment of the day, I do want to address a comment that came in just after we went to break from Splash Bros. So much Cowboys cap room is for Dak and CD. And you have to understand that it's only going to lean more heavily towards the stars. Because remember, Micah Parsons is still up for a contract next season. And he's going to want a lot of money, perhaps the most money on the team yearly. So you have to account for that as well. Spills into the playbook. His Splash Bros, I couldn't agree with you more in that sentiment because we see it. We see that Dak is pressing to find CD, and we see that CD, while he's playing at the elite levels we knew he would, something just doesn't feel right. He's getting a little bit more frustrated, with the rest of the offense. That should be a telltale sign that you're going to have to find ways to figure this out quick if you're the Cowboys organizationally. Let's talk about a different game to conclude today's show. Let's talk about Sunday Night Football. Let's talk about the Lions and the Texans specifically. Start off, let's talk about the betting odds here. Detroit minus 3.5 point favorites. Over under 48.5. Houston plus 165 to win. Detroit minus 195 to win. And this game is another interconference game, but I'm not necessarily that excited about it. And I'm not excited about it for both teams because I love the Lions. And they are such a dominant team. They feel like the NFC favorite to make the Super Bowl this year, and they have just been pounding teams into submission. But what frustrates me about them is that they can seemingly get ahead of themselves, I feel like. There's only so much wealth to distribute, and if you have an off day, you can be gotten. And the Texans I'm just frustrated with because they are 6-2. Or they believe they are 6-2 or 5-3 at this point in the season. So seemingly, carefully safe in the AFC South. They are 6-3, rather. So comfortably safe to win the AFC South, but they haven't been convincing is my issue here. So in this matchup, these are two very intriguing yet frustrating teams, mainly because you're expecting a lot from the Lions, but there has to be a seed of doubt in your mind that there's going to be one day where they just look off. And if you were, say, thinking about betting on the Texans in this one, you have to say, well, they are 6-3, but have they looked really impressive? And not for nothing, this certainly feels like it could be a blowout. But the reason why I'm hoping it's not is because, Houston has this feel to them that they're the mini Lions. They still have that identity they built in year one of the D'Amico Ryans era, very similar to what Dan Campbell built in his first couple of years. And so that's why I feel like there is a sort of path for Houston to, get back to this kind of credo that they developed here. But the reason why I can't ignore the safer option, the Lions, is because to this point, they haven't necessarily had to kick into second gear. If you want my honest opinion, this is what the Lions look like in first gear, going through the motions, because that's how dominant they've been. As Blackhouse says, Lions, Ben Johnson's been cooking. I agree. When you're someone of Ben Johnson's caliber and have the weapons at your disposal to run such an effective offense and have a game plan week in, week out that you're confident in, you're sitting with house money here. However, it is kind of weird to see different developments in this Lions offense. I think about the ways they've won this season. For example, against Seattle, by pounding the rock, by, being opportunistic against the Vikings, and things of that nature. I feel like, if you are Ben Johnson, the danger here is seemingly choosing the wrong offensive game plan. And it's going to be very rare, because very rarely do the Lions come out looking flat this season. But in the rare occasion that the Lions have a game plan, that's when they open themselves up to vulnerabilities. But on the Houston side of things, I don't necessarily think they're well equipped to handle whatever Detroit throws at them. Because this Texans defense, is a very excitable one. It's very respected. And D'Amico Ryans is doing a good job of developing it. They have the talent. They have guys in the front who they trust. They have guys in the back end who are really improving. But overall, it just feels like they're a little step below what the Detroit Lions have built here. So that's why I feel a little bit apprehensive in feeling comfortable saying the Texans can cover the spread, no matter how minimal it is right now. Whereas the Lions, I feel like, they can't be exploited defensively. It's going to be hard to do because that secondary has really kind of compensated for the loss of Aiden Hutchinson with its ability to generate takeaways. But I also feel like it's a defense that can account for so many different things now. No matter what adversity hits them or befalls them, they feel like a defense that is heavily prepared for what's to come. And right now, the Texans' offense is one that we thought would be at a certain point this season. We're talking about them as one of the best in the NFL. They had the receiving core. Stroud was entering his second year after having a historic rookie season. Everything was sunshine and lollipops for them. But they haven't gotten to the 6-3 record as convincingly as we had hoped. And that's the situation that we find ourselves in with the the Houston Texans. How much stock are we going to place in this team if they make the playoffs, if they do it in an unconvincing manner? Because chances are this is the conclusion of the AFC South race. It's over, even if they lose, because of all those teams in there who just can't compete with them. But I am starting to look at this Houston Texans team a little bit differently. I still think they're a top 10 team in the league because of what they have. But this feels like a team that's lost a lot. As Splash Buzz mentions Brian Branch, who really has been impressive, and he's going to be a huge X factor no matter what game he's playing in. So there's so much danger here for the Houston Texans as a team that is sitting pretty right now, but also knows that it could definitely have looked a lot easier over these past couple of months to get to where they are. And the Lions can prove that in a hurry. The Lions are not afraid of anyone in this situation. They're focused on finding a way to beating you, executing their game plan, and getting done with their business. And if you can't find a way to stop it or can't help but fall into their trap, then good luck to you. I feel, that the Texans, no matter how many struggles they face this season, are still on a similar trajectory with the Lions are building, and they are far ahead of schedule in that department because the Lions, remember, were not good at the start of the Dan Campbell era. They played tough for him, but they didn't win many football games. the Texans already have a playoff berth to their name in the first season of DeMeco Ryans' tenure, and they will have a second. But the second time around lost a little bit of its luster. This is going to have to be all about finding it again. Because if they don't, then I'm not really confident that this team will do much for me in the future. But that will just about do it for today's edition of the GSMC Fantasy Sports Podcast. The Splash Bros ends it with Goff on the MVP discussion. I agree. ESPN has him as there as well, and I have him in my top 3 at the very least as well. But that will just about do it for today's show. Thank you all for tuning in. I have been Christopher Shepard. Thank you as always for tuning in. Like, follow, and subscribe to the show on the network. Keep on making yourselves available to the Super Chat, Super Things, and Super Stickers features here on YouTube. And we'll be back tomorrow at 3:30 p.m. Eastern. But other than that, I am out for today. Thanks to you.